Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Saraland, Alabama, Parade First Team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit, agency owner of Portal Insurance in Mobile, Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
Can you do that when I get to my office every
Hell
morning?
to the yes. I'm going to go in. We'll put Thunderstruck from AC/DC on the radio, and we'll get that thing fired up over there. We'll get people selling like it's Wolf of Wall Street over there.
I think it was Woody Brown that said he wanted you to drive to Georgia and do that every morning.
Every single morning. Guys, I am excited to be in Mobile, Alabama today. Land of the free, home of the brave. I am proud to be here. I'm excited to be here. As Bradley likes to always say, I am a tornado when we get a live in-studio guest, and that is exactly what we have today. But not only do we have an in-studio guest, we have an in-studio guest that took the time, the energy, and the effort to fly halfway around the world, it seems like, from Chicago, Illinois to Charlotte, North Carolina to Mobile, Alabama. Guys, I am proud and excited to have our guest today. But before I introduce him, I want to talk a little bit about what the purpose and the mission is of this show. Our purpose on this podcast, our reason for living, is to help you agents in any way we can. Sales, service, marketing, digital, whatever it may be, that's what we're here to help with. And Bradley and I want to say, and I'll let Bradley speak on this too, how humbling it has been. I guess probably since we got back from Elevate even, I've been getting 3 or 4 DMs, emails, text messages from people who either have questions that they would just like for us to kind of talk to them about, or they want to just say thank you for what we've done on this podcast. And I will tell you, it is rocket fuel for us. It is very humbling to me to know that this podcast is going to be our legacy in the insurance industry. This podcast was way, way, way overdue. And since this podcast is inception, we have had a lot of different really good podcasts come on board besides ours. And I feel like we were, us and Jason Cass, I know Cass came on before we did, but we were kind of the leader of, getting out there. And now it seems like everybody's got a podcast.
Yep. And it's one of those things, on the way to the studio this morning, I was kind of thinking about where all we've been because, I actually thought back to the first episode we did, which you cannot find. Right. It's not on there anymore. If you guys go to look for it, it's the first episode because it was terrible. Scott was in Huntsville. I was in Mobile. We were 6 hours apart. He was recording on his end. I was recording on my end. We were going to match the audio up afterwards, and I could not hear him. We did a whole episode of me nodding my head. We're on Skype. And I thought about that, like, how in the world did those two guys do anything beyond 3 episodes? And kudos to Johnny Gwynn for stepping up to the plate, and I mean, he's kind of the brains behind the quality of the podcast, the structure, and allowing us to record here in his studio. Every good thing business-wise that has happened to me in the past 2 years can somehow directly be associated with this podcast. And that's not to thump my chest. That's to say how humbling it is for the insurance industry to accept us like they have.
And somebody's about to start crying. So, yeah, I could not agree with you more. And the relationships we've built and the people we've met has just been, as I always say, guys, unintended consequences. You want unintended consequences, start a podcast either in the insurance, about the insurance industry or the industry that you serve within the insurance industry. And I can promise you, one thing I'll say about that too, Bradley, is the grit and determination. The number one thing you got to have in life is grit to keep going and going and going. And we could have easily stopped after the second episode that sucked.
I wanted to so bad.
I did too. But through all the challenges and all the things that went wrong, we just kept moving one foot in front of the other and one foot in front of the other until we finally got to a point to where we both felt good about it. So thank you to the industry. Thank you to all the people we've met. Thank you to everybody that was at Elevate that came up and spoke to us and said hello to us. It meant a lot to us. Met a lot of really nice people and met a lot of
And neither one of us felt like we should have went.
You remember that lady?
Like,
you remember that lady? We were standing
Yeah.
in the lobby waiting to go to dinner, and we were waiting on 3 or 4 people. And she walks up and she goes, "Hey, are you the guys from the Insurance Guys podcast?" And we said, "Yeah, we are." And she said, "I'm starstruck right now." And I'm like, "I don't know why."
But you know, and the thing is, like with Elevate, is I just opened a new business. I didn't need to go.
Right.
Like you're 8 hours away, 9 hours away. Like we really, both of us had so much stuff going on. We didn't need to go, but we just felt like it was the right place for us to be, and that proved true. I mean, we made so many good connections. And shout out to Sydney and Joey. For having us there. It was awesome for them to do that. So.
Absolutely. Guys, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest for today. I am fired up to have him on this show. Let me tell you how important this podcast is today. This podcast is so important that we are actually going to break this up into 2 or 3 different podcast segments. So you will probably see episode 1 or whatever episode that is will be the first segment, and then you'll see the next week and the next segment, and then the next week, the next segment. So
and then you have to pay to get the third. I'm kidding.
No, exactly. Yeah, we're going to make you pay $19.99 to get the third segment. No, I'm kidding. Guys, let me introduce our guest today. He actually grew up in Winnetka, Illinois, and we're going to talk about what I'm about to say on the podcast here in just a few minutes. But he grew up right around the corner from the Home Alone house and the movie Home Alone. We're going to talk about that in just a second. He lives in Chicago, Illinois, and he's been a lifelong Chicago Bulls fan. And by the way, I have a Michael Jordan story that we're going to talk about here in a minute too. He is engaged to his beautiful fiancee, Jen. He's held previous positions as a senior social media analyst, director of media operations, and since 2015 has been a client solutions manager. He works for a little-known social media platform that you guys may know as Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the other incomparable Mr. Patrick Romey. How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Scott.
Man,
and thanks for having me.
Man, we are excited and proud to have you today. My expectations for this podcast today, guys, if you're listening to this right now, I have very low expectations for this podcast, and let me tell you why. Because what I want to do over the course of the next 3 episodes, 2 or 3 episodes, however many we get to, is the only thing my expectation is, Bradley, is that we completely change the insurance industry and create an entirely new economy for the United States of America.
Don't you try to do that
Now,
every episode?
Those goals, in my opinion, are not very lofty, but I do want to change the economy of the United States of America, and I do want to change completely and entirely the insurance industry.
Are you going to show us your
here.
tax returns?
No, absolutely not. That is not ever going to happen. So, with that said, guys, we've got a lot to talk about today and a lot to cover, but before we get to that, we got to get to the important stuff. So, before we came on air today, we're going to finish this conversation. So, my boy Romey here grew up right around the corner from the Home Alone house, and we just got into a 5-minute conversation about what the dad from Home Alone did for a living. Now, if any of you remember, I know everybody's seen the movie Home Alone. Nobody it was never told what the father did for a living in that show, right? So, Romey, tell everybody what your guess was as to what he did for a living. 7 kids, 14-bedroom house, taking 462 people to Paris. What did this guy do for a living?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a bit of a mystery, but I figure early 90s or late 80s.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Chicago guy, he's probably a trader.
Exactly.
That was my guess.
I'm about to tell you the funniest thing that you've ever heard in your life. So Romey says probably a trader in Chicago makes perfect sense. And I say, I've always imagined that he was an architect. And Romey looks at me but serious as a heart attack, did not break a smile when he said this. He goes, "Yeah, but he was a little bit forgetful." And I said, no shit, he left his damn son at home and went to Paris.
Here's the thing, though.
The garage door, what was it?
It's like back in the heyday, 8-9 years ago with online poker, you'd have these guys that would play 20 poker games at one time. And I had some buddies that would do that and always ask, like, man, how do you play 20 tables at one time? And you have them all pulled up on the screen. He's like, well, if you have one, to add another one, you're doubling the effort it's going to take you to play that, right? The energy. But if you add a third one, it's not as big of a percentage.
Right.
So to think of the Home Alone dad, if you had 2 kids and you left one of them, you 50% screwed up.
Sure.
But if you had 7 and you left one, I mean,
Bradley's rationalizing and justifying right now.
That checks out.
Exactly.
And the people that
Bradley,
know me as a dad know that there is a 1,000%, 0% chance that I would ever leave my kid anywhere. I'm like overprotective.
So Bradley, you're the only one that hasn't answered. Tell us what you think the dad did in Home Alone.
I think he sold insurance.
Do you really?
That's the only way they could afford insurance on that house is if he was writing it himself.
I never even.
I think he sold insurance.
How can I get on an insurance podcast and not even recognize that guy could have been?
I think he sold
insurance? Unbelievable.
You might be onto something.
I mean, salespeople forget everything.
Absolutely.
And he had to be in some sort of sales. So anyway,
Patrick, I got a question for you.
Sorry, everybody listening.
Patrick, you are a huge Chicago Bulls fan.
I am.
Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever met Michael Jordan?
Yes, but I was so young, I've only been told the story, so that sort of doesn't count.
How old were you?
I think I was maybe 2.
Okay.
He was shooting a commercial in a park or something like that. And
would you like to hear my Michael Jordan story?
I would
before
love
we get
to hear your
started?
Michael Jordan story.
So, guys, for those of you that don't know, I get asked about 6 times a week whether I played college football or not because I'm a pretty big guy, and people will come up to me and they'll say, "Man, did you play college football?" And I'm like, "No, I actually played college basketball. I was a 6'3" point guard. I was a pretty damn good high school basketball player as that goes, and I was a horrible college basketball player. Once I got into college, there were 2 things that I learned about. One was girls, and the other was beer. And when you play at a very high level in college basketball, it's hard to play at that level and, chase girls and drink beer. And I did a lot of that.
Did you major in eligibility?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So I played 2 years of junior college basketball, then transferred as a recruited walk-on at Birmingham Southern College, which was one of the baddest NAIA basketball programs in the country at that time. And I tell people this all the time. If you want to know how horrible I was at basketball, we won the national championship the year before I got there and the year after I left. So if that gives you any indication. So
does that burn you up?
Oh my gosh, it owns me. So in 1995, I had actually graduated and I was living in Birmingham, getting ready to go into the Marine Corps at that time. And I was living, a friend of mine from the really, really small town that I grew up in, his name was Ober Carter, was a really good basketball player too. And the coaching staff there had asked me about him, and I said, well, the one thing I can tell you about Ober, and he was white, but he was 6'6", and he could jump completely through the gym. Like, probably of all the kids I've ever seen, he had the best vertical jump I think I've ever seen. He could actually do the leave from half court and leave his foot behind the free throw line and dunk a basketball like Michael Jordan did in the dunk contest. I've actually witnessed him doing that. So kid could jump through the gym. Well, he got recruited by Birmingham Southern, and he played there. So he was there one night, and he called me about 9, 8 o'clock. And he said, "Hey, man, let's hang out tonight. Come on over to Birmingham Southern." So I got in my car, went over to Birmingham Southern. We drank a couple of beers, and he said, "Let's go out tonight." Well, Thursday nights in Birmingham are usually a pretty good night. It may have been a weird night, like
Thursday.
I want to say it was a Tuesday night because it was a weird night of the week. It was like one of those nights not many people are out. And so the more I think about it, I think it was a Tuesday night. But we'd had a few drinks, and he said, "Man, let's go out." I said, "Hell yeah, let's go out." We're 23, 21 years old, 20, whatever it was. And so this was 1995, and Michael Jordan was playing for the Birmingham Barons. He was living in Hoover, and we went to the only club that was open that night, dance club, called Senior Frogs in Hoover, Alabama. And we get there, and I'm 6'3", over 6'6", and I still look like I should be playing basketball, and he is actually playing basketball. And we walk into the club, and it doesn't take long before 2 girls come up. "Hey, what are y'all doing? Let's go dance." And so, we're at 2, young eligible guys, and we go out on the dance floor, and we're breaking it down,
Tall guys
Roger Rabbit
so
or
easy.
whatever we're doing. And we're on the dance floor. And guys, this is a true story. This really happened. I'm not making this up. We're out there dancing with these 2 girls. And I look up, and Bradley and I right now, as we sit here, probably, 3 feet away from each other? Probably 3 feet. And I look up, and Obra looks up at the exact same moment, and I'll be damned if standing on that dance floor dancing with some little girl from Hoover is freaking Michael Jordan. And To this day, I feel sorry for the two girls that we were dancing with because their hair could have literally caught on fire and we would not have known it at that moment. We were both so starstruck by seeing Michael Jordan standing 3 feet away from us, dancing, not just standing there, dancing. And so that moment, we just lose all whatever we had in terms of couth or whatever, and we just walk off the dance floor to create this Wile E. Coyote plan of getting to speak to Michael Jordan because, hell, he's right there, and we're here, and we play ball, and he's a basketball player, and we've looked up to him for so many years, but we didn't want to just walk up to him on the dance floor and be a complete douchebag, and just be like, hey, I know you're dancing with a girl, but we need to talk to you for a minute. So we walk off the dance floor to create this Wile E. Coyote plan, and he walks off the dance floor, and he goes over to a corner booth that he was sitting in, and there was probably 6 or 7 girls around him, and he had 2 cops with him, 2 uniformed duty police officers. He didn't have his own security. I guess the Birmingham Police Department must have provided that for him. So I said, man, let's just go over there and talk to him. Let's just go over there and talk to him. This is a lot like insurance too, by the way. You need to just go up, just meet people, talk to people, sling business cards. So here's where Scott Howell screws up. I get about 5 feet away from him, kind of at the edge of his table, and there's one cop here and there's one cop over here. As my friend and great American and business partner Clint Orr says all the time, I spilled my candy in the lobby. So I walk up to this Birmingham PD officer and I said, sir, and I go into sales mode, okay? I didn't know I was a sales guy then, but I was. I go into sales mode. I'm like, sir, listen, here's the deal. My friend and I, over 6'6", by the way, he's as tall as Jordan is. I said, we both play basketball. We play college basketball. And Michael Jordan's a hero of ours. Could we please just step inside for just one moment and have say hello to him and shake his hand? And he looks up at me, and the greatest line of all time, he said, son, you got a big problem because you're the wrong sex to do that tonight. And that is my Michael Jordan story.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, but I did get 3 feet away from him. He was driving a candy apple red Corvette, and I think I actually saw that Corvette on I think it was a 30 for 30 they did on him.
Yeah.
Playing for the Barons.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when he was in Birmingham, in some of the shots, you could see him driving around in this candy apple Corvette. And as I left that night, about an hour or two later, he was standing outside that vet, leaned up against it. Of course, Birmingham PD was still around him a little bit. And he was talking to some little blonde-headed girl at his Corvette. I don't know if he was giving directions back to the house or if he was getting the digits, but they were just standing there talking, and he was leaned up against his vet. Would have been a great picture if I'd had a cell phone at that time, but I didn't. So that's my Michael Jordan story. So guys, listen, today we've got a lot to talk about. 3 episodes. I'm sorry I've bored you guys to death with stories, but we're going to talk a little bit about trends we're seeing within the industry. We're going to talk about insurance path to purchasing research from Facebook and Accenture, advertising basics. Now, stop you right there. We're also going to talk about customer acquisition and retention strategies and some other things, but then we're going to deep dive into episode 2, and we're going to talk about tactical strategies that insurance agents can use. Guys, I don't know that I could get anybody else on this podcast besides the guy that helps run the insurance team for Facebook that could talk any more about this any better than we can today. So before we get into trends in the industry, guys, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get in the passenger seat of my DeLorean for just a moment. Go back in time, maybe at Santa Clara College, 7,000 undergraduates, 3,000 master's degree students, Jesuit school out in Santa Clara,
you had a really good
California.
research paper teacher, didn't you, in college?
So I want you to go back to college and work your way up to today and tell us how you got from Santa Clara University to where we sit today.
All right, so sitting in the DeLorean.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I made it out to Santa Clara really because growing up in Chicago, I was pretty sick and tired of dealing with winter and the cold. So I had sunshine on my mind when I was applying to schools, and I had tunnel vision for California. Both my parents actually went to Santa Clara, and I had a couple of
legacy.
A couple of my siblings that went there as well.
Yes.
So a few visits when I was in high school, and I was pretty much sold. So I went out there and. Being in Silicon Valley and, making friends in college and just kind of building out that network. When I graduated, it was actually a friend of mine who had just accepted a job to Twitter. She had graduated a year ahead of me, and she said, hey, I'm about to go take this job at Twitter, my job at a current company is open, and I basically am on Facebook and help businesses advertise on Facebook. And that was a company called TBG Digital. So I thought that sounded pretty good. I can stay in the Bay Area for at least a little while longer, and moved up to San Francisco, and that's really how I got my start into social media marketing, which at the time was really it's funny to think back on it now, but this was before Facebook was a public company. It was really desktop based, and what I was consulting on at the time was, how businesses could help make their ads that were on the right-hand rail of the homepage stand out.
The part that everybody excludes now.
Yeah. So, it's funny to think about now, but we're, advising businesses on, the different color borders you could have on your images and how short to keep your ad copy that, could only be 90 characters anyways. So it's come a long way, and it's been an adventure to kind of be on that journey from the beginning.
You probably have a really interesting perspective, because you remember the ad platform when it was either non-existent or super, super basic, maybe both, to transform now to today where it's so robust that Facebook's almost having to back off of it a little bit.
Yeah, it was basic. It was sometimes broken, but yeah, no, it's amazing. Kind of just thinking back, 7-8 years now, what the platform has become, what tools have come along with it. Thinking back then, the value proposition of the company that I was with, TBG and other ones thereafter, where they had basically built technology on top of Facebook's platform through an API. And so that allowed businesses and teams like mine to more seamlessly advertise across Facebook and eventually other platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, et cetera. Over time, Facebook has, that platform has gotten so robust that I think you see a lot of the API partners, so to speak, they're really starting to focus and building on totally new add-on experiences rather than
the back-end type.
Exactly. So it creates this whole kind of amazing ecosystem where you get all of your basics, right? Your fruits and vegetables on Facebook, and then if you want to get all the additional sweets and whatnot, you can get that through some of these technology partners.
So as an employee of Facebook, and I've always wondered this, one thing you'll know about me, as I'm asking you questions, I'm not asking them as Scott Howell. I want to put myself in the position of the other 250,000 insurance agents that are listening to this program right now and talk about the things they want to hear about. And sometimes I'll ask you to dumb things down because I barely scratched 8th grade and I'm not very smart. And I know that a lot of times I hear things and I'm like, I didn't understand what he just said. So I may ask you to, hey, let's simplify that a little bit and put it more in layman's terms.
Yeah, please do.
A couple of things I wanted to ask you. So from an employment standpoint, do you work majority of your time at home? And I'm interested in this from the insurance digital agency concepts that we've talked about, where you have agents working from their house and everything instead of having the traditional storefront. But as an employee of Facebook, and how many employees are there at Facebook? And I should know that, and I don't. I knew it last week, and now it's escaping me.
The latest number is over 35,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. So 35,000 employees. Do you go into the Facebook headquarters every day?
35,587.
Gotcha. So do you go into the office, the Facebook headquarters every day, or are you working remotely from home and you guys are doing a lot of stuff via like webinars and Zoom and things like that?
Are you in the field?
Yeah, are you in the field every day?
Each week looks different, but on a typical week, if I'm in Chicago, I mostly go into the office. But I think we're fortunate as employees that Facebook sort of has a mindset of, as long as you're getting your work done wherever you need to get it done from, that's okay. So we do have flexibility. I'd say if, my personality, I enjoy being in the office. I enjoy interacting with others on my team and see what other people are up to, that work across the company. I also enjoy being in the field. Sure, there's a day or two that, I need to work from home.
Right.
But, fortunate to have that flexibility too.
Do you have any interaction at all with Zucks, or is it like monthly report goes to him on what we're doing?
35,000 employees, dude. There's
weekly one-on-one.
Yeah. Weekly, yeah. Employee review time. Come on in, Patrick.
No.
Which is understandable. I mean, my goodness.
He's got a lot of things on his plate.
More
Absolutely.
employees at
So-
Facebook, double the employees that are in the town that I live in.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's like I'm sorry I can't meet this week. I've got to go before Congress, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I heard from him last week. We once a year have a summit where they fly in people from our global business group
Right.
Into San Francisco. He had been in front of I think some regulators or government officials in Europe.
Sure.
So he had flown directly from that and had a kind of an hour-long Q&A session with our team. So that's typically the time that there's any interaction. But
Right.
I'm in a room with 6,000 people, and
Sure. Right.
not getting all of my questions necessarily out.
Exactly. I understand. So let's move into trends that we're seeing right now in the industry and within Facebook as well. I think the way to start this, let's talk about trends that we're seeing specifically as it relates to the insurance industry on Facebook.
Yeah.
What are you seeing there?
Where I always start is, I think there's, you certainly have traditional carriers, you have agents, you have direct carriers, you have kind of this new wave of insurtechs. And I think across kind of all those different cohorts, we see that all of them are really recognizing that mobile is this really important platform, not only to build your brand, but to interact with customers, to
Because it's where
acquire
everybody's
new-
at.
Exactly. And so I think, this isn't necessarily something that started this year, but it's taken a few years, and I think we're continuing to see a trend this way. It's really the embrace of the mobile device and starting to think about what does it mean to build a business on a mobile phone. And I think that means a lot of different things, which, I'm sure we'll go into, but, even just sitting here before we started recording, things around like, stories all of a sudden.
right.
Stories is a format that, has just exploded and continues to grow. You start thinking about things like messaging
Right.
and having that one-to-one interaction, but being able to do that in a more scaled way and what that can mean for businesses. So I say it's a insurance industry trend, but it's honestly it's also a trend across businesses, both large and small. And I think it's really understanding the potential that comes from embracing mobile and technology that can help grow businesses by automating
Right.
repetitive tasks and those types of things.
So it's interesting, and I think you and I had dinner in Miami at Agent 2021. I think we talked about this, or I know the group collectively did. Is the insurance industry as a whole, and it starts. I'm not talking about the agents. It starts at the carrier down. It's kind of behind overall compared to other industries. Doesn't mean that insurance is the most behind, but you're talking about everyone going to mobile platforms and things like that, and the importance of it. I mean, I know carriers that don't have an app, and so there's a book I read called Better and Faster. I've talked about it on the podcast, and basically it's about identifying trends. And what the author talks about is, he grew up in a town similar to where we are now, like Mobile. It's kind of a metropolitan area, but things move a little bit slower than they do in areas like New York and Atlanta. And what he would do is he would go to areas like New York and Atlanta and spot trends before they get to where he's doing business at.
Yeah.
So the fact that the insurance industry is behind, do you think it's an advantage from your perspective for you, or is it a disadvantage in that the way I look at it is I can go talk to this carrier and talk about the importance of an app, and they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing we've ever heard? Or is it, good God, I have to explain to this guy why he needs an app? You know what I mean? You probably get a little bit of both, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, I think it's definitely a bit of both. And I think, thinking about reasons why, in our conversation in Miami, why it might be behind, I think when you look at other industries, say, some that are more digitally native, right? So e-commerce, or if you're a gaming app, shopping experiences, they have really strong signals from digital and other platforms as to what's working, and it's critical for their business to be able to adapt and react to that. That said, I think the sort of path to purchase, right, when you're shopping for shoes, it's pretty straightforward. Insurance is a lot more complex. So regulations aside that you guys have to consider and the carriers have to consider, which obviously is playing into a part of this equation, but it's complex for a few different reasons, right? So it's generally a decision that's made pretty quickly, but it's also made in tandem with these bigger purchases that you're making, whether it's a home or a car. So I think given that, it is hard for a carrier or an agent to be able to necessarily identify who's the right person to get your message in front of and when's the right time to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I think because of all of and I would be remiss not to mention, right? It's not all happening online, and not the majority is happening online. It's trending that way,
right?
But there's many different ways that people are shopping for and buying insurance. A lot is still happening with the agents. A lot is happening on the phone. Yeah. More is happening direct.
So my friend and great American Mike Stromso has a great saying, and I'm going to repeat it for the 15th time on this podcast.
Everybody's rolling their eyes right now because they know what he's about to say. Yeah.
If you want to reach 100% of the marketplace, you got to be in 100% of the places that your people are in. So that's kind of goes along with
and
what
people
you're saying.
Are on Facebook.
They are. Everybody. From 14, 15, well, I shouldn't say that because that is the one segment of the population that when I personally do the unscientific Scott Howell polls of where kids are.
Yeah, they're not on Facebook.
They are not on Facebook.
Not yet.
Not yet. My son is 12. He's got 12, 13, 14-year-old friends, and you say the word Facebook, and they're like, hey, we don't do Facebook. But
it's just because their parents are
But
there.
you get up into that 25, 30-year-old up to my mother's age into the 65, 70, 80-year-old people. Those son of a guns live on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So, and as Mike was saying, if you want to reach 100% of the marketplace, you got to be at 100% of the places people are. And I think that's a little bit of what you're saying right now.
And he touched on it is you got to hit them at the right time, at the right moment during that buying cycle. Talk a little bit about the research that you guys have put into that path to purchase.
Yeah, so we did some research that we published last month. It's you can find it online if you go to Facebook for Business. It's a report called "Understanding the Journey of the Connected Insurance Consumer," and it's basically just taking survey data to understand what are the factors that play into someone discovering insurance options, both auto and property, evaluating them and purchasing them. And I think it's more or less, data that's validating a lot of what, we already know, right? So the purchase decision or the purchase cycle happens very quickly. And I was actually pretty shocked with some of the numbers, considering that, over 60% of consumers are making a decision in less than a week. So when you think about that from, a business standpoint, from a marketer standpoint, that's a pretty tight window of time to be able to figure out when's the right time to reach that person.
And they just want to get it over with.
Yeah, and had you asked me that question before you read that, I would have said I think the typical consumer, in terms of home and auto insurance, probably makes that decision in a 3-day window. Mm-hmm. That from the time insurance and here's the other thing, guys. 250,000 agents listen to this. I say this all the time. I tell this to my agents all the time. What we have to understand as insurance agents is all we think about is insurance. We do it 24/7, 365. It's either on our mind or about to be on our mind, or we're right in the middle of it during the day because we're doing it. Our customers, our members, our clients, they aren't thinking about insurance until they need insurance, or as the CEO of Nationwide said one time, they get jostled because of something, whether it's a claim experience or I just bought a new car. Those are the times that those people are thinking about insurance. While all of us listening to this podcast right now, we think about insurance all the time. It's like, why the hell isn't everybody thinking about insurance? So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to
it's a great point, and I think that was one of the key takeaways from this research was that given that this is you may have 3 days or a week to be able to identify that person, it really underscores the importance of getting your business out there, getting your brand out there, and making sure that when someone is in the market for insurance, that you'll be top of mind when they're ready to buy.
So speaking of trends in the industry, I'm going to throw this out at you. You are now part of a team that is focused solely on the insurance industry. I'm going to assume, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we have a team at Facebook working solely on the insurance industry is because the agents around the world that are doing marketing and advertising, which is a lot, are spending millions of dollars on Facebook advertising to reach potential customers.
Or either they're not spending it on advertising, they're not utilizing it.
It would seem to me that your team would grow at Facebook as revenue grows, and whoever is up in the ivory tower at Facebook is saying, hey, man, we're getting a bunch of revenue off these insurance agents. We need to grow this division of our company. Am I right about that in terms of a trend?
Our team covers the industry as a whole. So,
Absolutely.
The carriers and their brand marketing campaigns,
Right.
as well as agents. And I think, to your point, Scott, I think is our partnerships with the brands, carriers, and agents alike has continued to grow. It's allowed us to invest in, more headcount, so we have more people on the team. But then also roles like myself, where I'm solely focused on helping to support the agent community, whether that's captive agents or independent agents, to really consult on what are ways that they can be using platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Messenger for their business. I'm excited about that.
And as you are in that role and you're assisting, and I think one of the beautiful ways that you're assisting those agents is to be on a podcast like this.
Absolutely.
Where you've got tons of agents listening to this.
And one beautiful thing about our audience is we're one of the only podcasts that has both captive and independent, and we have carriers that listen.
Absolutely.
So, and vendors and, the works.
So tell our agents out there, listen, I understand you can't give your cell phone out on air, and if Joe Smith in Walla Walla, Wisconsin has a question about Facebook advertising.
Is that a real place?
He doesn't, I don't know.
Washington.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If he has a question, he needs, he can call Patrick. But what are some ways that insurance agents that do have questions, and in terms of the research that you're doing and ways that you're helping the individual agents out there, how can they connect, not necessarily with you, but learn more about what you guys are doing on that team?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this is one of the areas I'm most focused on. Today, if you're an insurance agent or if you're a business owner of any sort, the single best resource you can use is called Facebook Blueprint. So this is a e-learning site that has over 100 different self-paced courses, and they're very digestible. It's about 15 minutes each. And they really range from if you're just getting started with Facebook and want to figure out how to set up your page, to some of the more advanced topics.
And it's a beast. There's a lot of info in there.
It is a beast. So I don't think there's any business that needs to knock all of them out by any stretch. So you want to pick and choose which ones make sense for your business.
Sure.
In addition to Blueprint, if you have a kind of more specific question, we have our Facebook Help Center, where you can go and you can search your specific topic. You'll see answers from the company, but you'll also see some kind of more Q&A based forums from actual users.
Right.
But I say I'm focused on this because I recognize that it can be a little intimidating. It can be a little bit confusing if you're an agent and you kind of have these two boilerplate, more or less, help resources. So we're really committed to building more industry-specific, agent-specific resources. We're starting to shoot some educational videos that will be speaking. It will be me speaking directly to agents. So
and me introing him on each one of the videos, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what you guys talked about in Miami.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were down. We're finishing up the first couple of them, and we're figuring out when we'll publish them and be producing more. But I was down in Austin and had hair and makeup in the whole works.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it was cool. But I think
where would
needed.
where would an insurance agent? I'm assuming those have not been released yet. Is that right?
Not yet. We're in editing.
But where would an agent? Let's say you're in Denver, Colorado, and you're a State Farm agent, and you want to go watch those videos. Where would they go to see those?
Sure. I think we're figuring that out. But I think the idea is we're going to create a educational content hub that'll be specific for the industry.
Ooh.
So,
guys, you're learning new info here right now. Hot off the press.
And any help that Scott and I can give you guys pushing that out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you said an educational, did you say tab or something? Is
hub.
Hub, okay.
Yeah. So a site that we could we could send out and share out.
So I know you met Michael McCormick, Taylor Dobby down at Agent 2021
Great
with
guys.
Bradley. Love those guys. They're friends of the show, and we appreciate all they do for the industry. They have a program. I'm sure you probably got into an in-depth conversation about that. Do you see that as another way for agents to drill down into Facebook advertising is through something like that where they actually go purchase their course and learn more about Facebook advertising and how to do it correctly?
Yeah, those guys have extensive resources. They have a really impressive library of content.
Yeah.
And I would say if you're an agent that is sort of hungry to learn more and you want to take that initiative, I mean, look at all the resources that you have available. And I think resources that those guys have are definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mike was showing me a couple months ago, and I think he must have been scrolling for 5 minutes with how many courses there were. It was really impressive.
Mike's knowledge from a marketing standpoint is not just Facebook. From a marketing standpoint in general, not only is his knowledge extensive, but he kind of nerds out on it.
Right.
This is a funny story. He and I were having dinner in Miami the second night, and I ordered cheese on my quesadilla. And he said, "You want to hear a story about cheese? It was this was a marketing play." And and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
I love it.
The farmers had too much milk, and they had to turn it into something.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about insurance path to purchase research from Facebook and Accenture. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know that was one of the topics we wanted to cover in this episode. So your take on purchasing research from Facebook. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so I think, building on the idea of how challenging, right, it can be to identify, all right, this is the right person to get the right message in front of, and it's the right time. I think what this research did a nice job of is really highlighting what are ways that millennials are maybe different, right, than previous generations, Gen X, baby boomers, and how are they different in sort of each phase of the purchase funnel? So discovery, evaluation, and eventually purchase. And there were a couple takeaways from that research that I thought were really interesting. The first being that millennials are actually, and I guess this isn't maybe that surprising, but it surprised me. Millennials are actually more open to carriers, agents, more insurance options than previous generations. So I think that's a really interesting opportunity when you think about it, and you think about building your brand, getting your name out there.
Why do you think that is?
Are you speaking about less loyalty? Are you saying where previous generations, well, my dad had State Farm, so I'm going to have State Farm. They're more wide open and like, hey, I'll just go with whoever's got the best price. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily all about price, although that is an important factor.
I think it's a convenience thing.
Yeah, it's sort of the more holistic relationship that you have with the business, and I think generationally, what a difference is millennials are open to new ways of thinking, new ways of having relationships with business, and I don't think that's insurance specific, but we're seeing that within this research and in with insurance as well.
My next question is this. Do you have research available or numbers to back up when an insurance agent, any insurance agent, goes out and advertises through Ad Manager? I'm not talking about boosting a post, and we can talk about that a little bit too. But when somebody goes to the Ad Manager and they know what they're doing, they've got great copyright, they've got a great ad. Bradley's a great example of this. He does some great stuff on Facebook. Me, not so much. But when they go do that, and they get a lead from Facebook that through Messenger or however they get it, and they're then turning that into a quote and then hopefully binding that policy. Is there any research out there right now of a demographic that is most likely to be someone that they can reach and that will come back to them and get a quote? Is there any of that kind of information out there? Because the reason I ask is because insurance agents are spending all this money on Facebook ads. A lot of them are having success. McCormick and those guys talk about that. People that use their program talk about having success. But it seems to me like once that person comes on Facebook Messenger and says, hey, I'd actually like a quote on insurance, is there a way for Facebook to kind of quantify demographically?
The reasons why demographically?
Well, the reasons why, the age group, the income level. Is there any way to quantify that from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think this sort of scratches the surface on a really important sort of discussion, right? So I think part of the power of Facebook's platform is all the different tools you have to be able to target different audiences. And I think, that that allows you to narrow in on a specific audience, but it's you still need to sort of experiment and understand, is that audience actually translating? I may think I know who the best demographic is, but is that demographic actually translating into business? And I think we see the most successful businesses are doing a good job of measuring what happens after someone sees an ad, or what happens after someone clicks on that ad, and is using that information, feeding that back into Facebook. So there's kind of this continuous loop to help our system work harder for your business, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I guess my question is, though, do you have specific data associated with demographics that people, or for instance, every insurance carrier in America has a homeowner's product, right?
Right.
That product,
For the most part.
Well, most of them do. A lot of them do. So every carrier has product people that design the rates for that particular insurance carrier. And as part of that algorithm, they pretty much know who gets their best rate, right? And here's the other crazy thing about that, and it's why so many insurance agents, and I hear them, people will call and they'll say, well, just give me a ballpark rate. Well, that's almost impossible to do because especially if you're an independent and you've got 3 or 4 or 5 companies that you write through.
Just throw a number out.
Yeah, exactly, because one may love 65-year-olds with a 700 credit score, and the next company may love 35-year-olds with a 650 credit score, and those rates are all kind of over the board. My question was, is there demographic information that as an insurance agent, if I target a 65-year-old female with a 750 credit score, is that the most likely individual to come back to me and say, hey, I want to quote?
I'm going to answer that, and then I want you to tell me how right I am. My guess would be no, because the advantage and the disadvantage to insurance is everybody has to buy it.
Okay.
Everybody has to buy it. Therefore, every single demographic segment at some point is ready to buy insurance for different reasons.
Right.
You see what I mean?
So I do.
It's probably hard to quantify that.
Yeah, and I think I think you're right on, and I think from my perspective too, from agent to agent, business to business, probably what the most high value customer is probably looks a little bit different, and from a consumer standpoint, what they're looking for might look a little bit different.
Right.
I think a lot of the topics today, right, around making sure that you have personalized messaging, and you have you think about some of the messages that are in the market, like Liberty Mutual has a new campaign out there. I believe Allstate has similar messaging around, getting the coverage that works for you.
Right.
Or you think about Progressive not having your parents' insurance, right? So,
and I think I answered my own question too, guys, because here's, I think, how you do that. As an agent, when you go to target people on Facebook, you get with either the company you represent, if you're a captive, or an independent, and figure out who are the people we want to reach. Who on Facebook that we could reach within a radius of our office is the most likely to have the best rate if they do come back and say, we want to quote on insurance, and target that particular individual. So I think I kind of answered my own question when I asked that. So
continue what you were saying.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I'm actually, I was going to build on that, because I think, without going too deep in the weeds, what you're getting at, I think, is an important and pretty advanced strategy that I think agents would be eager to hear. Facebook certainly has a lot of information that we get from people's profiles and what people are doing on Facebook, but it doesn't replace the information that businesses have and know about their own customers. So I think we see a couple of different ways in which businesses are using their own data to sort of inform that targeting on Facebook, and that's where I see the most success happening for agents and carriers alike.
If you're going to target 65-year-old Brenda who has 3 cats and is widowed for insurance,
that's my market.
The message needs to be written for her.
Right.
It doesn't need to be, hey, dude. You know what I mean? It's got to be written towards that person. What I see with a lot of agents, and not just in targeting, I mean in their branding and Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere, they either go too narrow with the audience and too broad with the message, or too narrow with the message and too broad with the audience.
Right.
I can see that. Something interesting I'm looking at here, I'm looking at this report that you mentioned, Understanding the Journey of the Connected Insurance Consumer, and we will link that up in the show notes because it is super informative. And I'm going to go on sort of a rant. Somebody posted in IAOA the other day something about brand, and I commented, and I was the first comment and disagreed with what the person was saying. I understood the point, but I disagreed with it from how I operate, and it was around brand. I'm not going to go into what it specifically was about, but the person said, well, I knew you were going to be the first person to comment when I said brand, but I'm all about building my brand, building my agency brand over, above, and beyond the carrier. I tell new agents all the time, you need to use that carrier brand right when you start, if you're a Liberty Mutual agent or a State Farm agent or an Allstate agent, to gain leverage, especially if you're not leverage, but legitimacy, especially if you're brand new in the industry. But over time, you need to separate yourself from that. What makes the insurance guy online special, separate from Nationwide?
Right.
Because if you don't do that, what separates you from every other Nationwide agent in the country? So one thing on here, it says, the survey revealed that 56% of auto insurance shoppers say they are loyal to a particular insurance brand, and 83% say they only initially consider 1 to 3 brands. Now, here's the thing. What all of our captive agents listening are going to think is, well, we got that brand. No, everybody's not going to consider the same 3 brands, which is why in your community, in your small little pocket of the United States of America or the world, because we do have an international audience, you need to brand yourself in that area. Thankfully, luckily, our agency, brand new agency, was able to get appointed with a really, really, really good carrier that everybody wants, and we're super excited about it. We've already written a lot of business with them. They sent me a nice big carrier plaque in the mail the other day. Not going to lie, it felt good. I picked it up, I put it in the drawer and shut the drawer. And my CSR, who's worked at an independent agency in the past, and every independent agency, you walk in there and there's 8,500 carrier plaques. Nothing wrong with carriers, nothing wrong with carrier plaques, nothing wrong with agents that do that. But I told her, I said, I don't want people buying insurance from XYZ insurance company. I want people buying insurance from Portal Insurance. And so that's why I think this says perfectly why you need to build your brand, in that when your 20-year-old clients now are grandpas, they're telling their kids, hey, you need to buy insurance from Scott Howell, not Nationwide. Thoughts? It just struck a chord with me, so I had to.
So Bradley and I have a little difference of opinion here, guys. And as I always like to say,
Patrick's in the middle of us.
As I always like to say, why can't both be true?
Absolutely.
I do believe that. So for those of you that don't know this, and I don't think there's anybody left that doesn't know this, but in July of 2020, Nationwide Insurance has made the decision to have all of their 3, 4, 5,000, however many there are, exclusive agency force is going to go independent. Most 95 to 99% of those people, there's one option that you could choose this year in July of 2019, but the 95% of agents will go independent in July of 2020. And for myself, I have made the decision, as I think a lot of agents will, that we are going to continue to be a nationwide insurance agency. We are going to continue with a brand. We're going to continue doing what we're doing. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. And I think it's one of the struggles that the independent agency force has always faced. So on my way down here yesterday, I had a 5.5-hour trip down here. And I spent that time listening to the Wolf of Wall Street on Audible, his book. And I can't remember the name of it, but
Wolf of Wall Street, I think.
Well, everybody in America has seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. And he has a straight line system approach to sales. And in the beginning chapter 1 and 2 of that book, he talks about this. And I think it's one of the problems independent agencies have always had. He says, what you want, if you have a continuum from 0 to the number 10, that you want 3 areas when you first speak to a client, potential client, prospect, you want to get as high to a 10 as you possibly can. And if you can reach the number 10 in all 3 of these areas, more than likely, 99% of the time, somebody's going to buy from you. So the first 10 on that continuum is the actual product that you sell. That product, the homeowner's product, you want to very quickly build rapport with somebody, and you want them to trust that product, that it's going to provide the value and it's going to do what it says it's going to do. And the higher you can get on a 10 with that product, you're in good shape, right? The second thing is the person that they're dealing with on that phone or on that Facebook message. Number 2 rule, higher you can get to that 10, the better chance you are of that person selling you, because an objection is not an objection. It's not an objection at all. What an objection is somebody doesn't have enough confidence in what they're about to purchase, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lack of confidence in the purchase that you're trying to get them to make. So first is a product. Second is the agent themselves. Do I have confidence in you, Patrick, that you got my best interest at heart and you're going to do what you say you're going to do? But here comes the third thing, and it's why we're going to continue to be a nationwide insurance agency even after the merger, or we go away from being an exclusive agent. And I think this is a problem that the independent channel has always had. And if they want to hire me for $6.7 million, I will change this for them. But until the big I does that, I'm unwilling to do that. The third part of this, got to get to a 10, guys. You got to get as high to a 10 as you can. And if you can get here on 10 and you've got 10 on product and 10 on agent, this is going to carry you over the finish line. They have to trust the company that you represent. Why does Scott Howell and I Protect Insurance want to brand the I Protect name and the I Protect logo when I've got a company that most people around America, and not only this company has spent since 1928 billions and billions and billions of dollars marketing as a trustworthy company, and hired Peyton Manning and hired Brad Paisley, running millions of dollars worth of television advertising. Why do I want to try to go out and market the brand I Protect Insurance that nobody knows? I guarantee you, if you walked into the front of a Walmart in Huntsville, Alabama, and stopped 300 people and said, "Do you know who I Protect Insurance is?" 297 of those people would say, "Hell no, I don't know who the hell that is. It's some independent insurance agency." Go walk up to the front of that same Walmart and say, "Hey, I got a question for you. Do you know who Nationwide Insurance is?" 300 out of 300 people. And 250 of those people, you know what they'd do? They'd go, "Nationwide is on my side." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do I want to go out and spend the time, energy, effort? You talk about a long play. Shit, I got to catch up to 1928 and $15 billion that's been spent since then to market that name. So on that third platform of that continuum I talked about, the straight line system, Wolf of Wall Street, I want to keep that Nationwide brand because I'm already ahead of the game. And I think that's one area that independent agents have always been behind the 8 ball, because when the consumer, the prospect, gets a call from an associate agent at State Farm, they're already up to a 10 or maybe an 8, unless somebody's had a bad claims experience or something happened, which does happen from time to time. But they're already up on that continuum, because the person they call, the first thing they're hearing is what? State Farm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a brand we trust. That's a brand we know. That's a brand that spends billions of dollars a year, $1 billion a year on advertising.
And I don't disagree at all, but I think you do have to be mindful, if you are going to use that big brand name that you have no control over, you have to be mindful that you do need to separate yourself from in a brand perspective. And I think it segues nicely into creating awareness for your business on Facebook. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
I don't disagree with anything that you had said there. And I think, it reminds me of, again, going back to the research, I think it's about those moments where, there's a consumer that is considering a couple different options, and maybe it's a Nationwide or a State Farm. So, how is your agency standing out? And honestly, a lot like a conversation you'd have with somebody who walked in the door and kind of explain, your business's story. They're clearly in the market. They're interested in hearing from you. So, but I think to pivot back to just sort of the branding opportunity, it also goes back to, Scott, what you said earlier about meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Bradley's
meeting people where they are, and it's on mobile today.
Right. Everybody has their and I tell agents this all the time. Guys, listen to me. Every human being that you interact with, including preteens, have a phone surgically attached to their arm. It is the new television.
It's our most personal device. It's not just a phone. It's all of a sudden the internet. It's how we're connecting with friends and family every day.
And Patrick, guess what's on their home screen when you turn the phone on, okay, and the home screen comes up. What apps are on that phone? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat. Those are the 4 or 5, and if you're an older adult, probably LinkedIn. There's really a handful of those, what I call mothership apps, one of which you work for, right?
Yes.
That are on that home screen.
Yep. Both Facebook and Instagram, part of the Facebook family, as well as Facebook Messenger, if you use that as a messaging app, or WhatsApp, which is a little bit more popular internationally.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important, not only because, it's again where people are spending their time, but it's also offering businesses a totally new way to be able to interact with people.
Right.
And make it more personalized and be able to use data and different signals within this digital ecosystem to be able to understand where someone is, on their journey, whether they're a current customer or prospective customer.
So let's go back. I want to talk for just a second. Since Bradley's not here, we can talk. We can get real in here now.
Let's get real.
So Scott Howell owns 3 insurance agencies, North Alabama. Scott wants to buy research. Okay, that's one of our topics today, research. How would I don't know a lot about Facebook. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm probably not even enough to be dangerous. But how would Scott or another agent, if they wanted to buy research or, through Accenture or Facebook, how would they go about doing something like that?
Well, the good news is our research is free.
Okay.
So we have a website called Facebook IQ, where all of that content, all of the research that we commission from others or we conduct ourselves, we share that finding with businesses and make it available to help them kind of see what we found and what our advice is for marketers on the platform, and what they can take from those insights.
And what kind of information would be on there for an insurance agent like myself that I might find interesting, helpful? What types of things might be on there?
Yeah. So, in addition to kind of the research that we talked about, that's more around like consumer purchase decisions. That's going to be true across a couple of different products or verticals. There's a lot of research just around, what people's attitudes and perceptions are, what they're talking about on Facebook. So you think about, what are ways that marketers or businesses could take advantage of seasonal moments. So whether that's, the holidays or it's maybe an event around like the Super Bowl. We're also able to pull some insights and share, what are the conversations that are happening on Facebook around those specific events. Gotcha. Another area that I think is helpful for businesses is understanding the kind of role that Facebook and Instagram, these platforms can play, or even just the phone can play with other devices or other marketing channels, whether that be the interaction of Facebook and television together, or Facebook and search, Facebook direct mail. Those types of insights are available as well.
So tell me, in terms of creating awareness, and I know Bradley said let's jump into that. I want to jump into that for just a second. So I'm no different than the other 250,000 agents that are listening to this. What is the best way that you see on a daily basis, because you're crunching numbers, looking at data? It is, and I'm going to make an assumption here, and you can tell me I'm wrong. Again, 8th grade education. But, to me, and I've always said this, video is king.
You're right about that.
Video on Facebook, there's nothing that my mother's friends would love more than to see me and my little English bulldog on Facebook. They absolutely freaking love it. So in terms of creating awareness for I Protect Insurance, a nationwide company, by the way, agency, or Portal Insurance, give our audience some meat and potatoes real quick about what you see in terms of what works the best on Facebook.
Yep. So I think you're absolutely right that video is really important to think about, and the reason being is as technology gets stronger, as things like 5G start to be built up, that's going to support video experiences. And we're seeing that people prefer to consume video. I think that's a big reason why Stories has taken off as a format, right? It's full screen. It's primarily video.
And it's not going to take up a lot of your time either.
Exactly. You're able to communicate very quickly. And that's...
What's the average length of time on Facebook that someone actually, we're all busy. We don't have time to watch a 45-minute Facebook live feed. But what's the average time when somebody will watch something if it's interesting? And that's another key, which is hard to do unless you're creative, to get somebody's attention. But how long do I have before they go, shit, I got something, I got to go pick up the groceries. I don't have time for this.
I don't know if I have a stat off the top of my head, but I think you hit a really important point, is that everyone on Facebook, Instagram, business or person is competing for attention, right? So everyone's time in these newsfeed experiences or stories is finite. So every piece of content that's in there is essentially competing for someone's attention. So I think the kind of benchmark that we use is, if you're a brand and you're thinking about communicating your brand story, how do you get your brand and message across even as quickly as 3 seconds?
Wow.
Because people are scrolling through their phones pretty quickly. And we've actually...
And the volume's usually off. So in terms of what you say,
you got to have captions. Captions are important.
Yeah, what you say, if they're scrolling through their phone like I do, like 30 miles an hour, they may never hear what the words are that you're saying.
Yep.
But they could stop if it's an English bulldog with a pink tutu on, balancing a golf ball on his nose, right?
I mean, it's visually appealing.
Absolutely.
Right? So
I would stop for that.
But yeah, no, I think, we...
Can he do that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm training him to do that.
But yeah, I think you bring up a great point where advertisers need to be thoughtful about designing for sound off.
Right.
Because most people have their phone off. So
the CEO, Bradley and I were at the Elevate conference a couple of weeks ago, and the CEO of the last speaker on Monday, he threw up some statistics on Facebook, right? One of the
the Wista guy.
Wista, yeah, he's like the CEO of
Nottingham.
Wista. Nottingham was his name. And he said that only, and I don't know how true this is, I'd have to go back to my phone because I actually took a picture of this, that only something like 5% of Facebook videos actually get listened to because the sound is off until you stop and click it, and then the sound will come on. Does that sound about right to you, that 5 to 10% of videos are actually being listened to?
It sounds slightly low, but I think the majority of videos, to the overall point, are sound off. So, if you're trying to sort of maximize the impact, you want to be able to communicate your message to someone who has their sound on or off, right?
Right.
And so things like captions or even using graphics or supers to kind of overlay text onto your video, right? Those can be really important in making sure your message is being consumed and someone can understand what you're trying to communicate. I think the other big thing that we think about, and again, it's a new muscle for people, is we say design for mobile, right? So when you think about traditional digital ads that are on the internet, or you think about other ad formats, they've typically been like horizontal images, but whether you're advertising or not, it costs just as much, it takes just as much effort, right, to have your photo or video render vertically. So it takes up actually more pixels, more space on your phone, giving your business more real estate on someone's most personal device, and so that you can really kind of own someone scrolling through that news feed.
So help me out here. If I'm an agent, I don't want to buy $10,000 worth of camera equipment, so I'm just going to use my phone, which is still, amazing
that's
quality.
the better way to do it.
Absolutely. Would I turn the phone sideways or leave it
vertical,
vertically there?
Yeah, vertically.
Yeah.
And I think the main point behind that is most people that are going to be seeing your post, they've got their phones vertically too.
Right.
So that's sort of the behavior that people are used to consuming content on their phone. And so how do you maximize the real estate? How do you maximize the ability to communicate? your message, it's you're going to get more out of your investment, whether that's time or whether that is advertising dollars, out of a piece of content that is vertically oriented and shows up larger on the phone.
And how important is the copyright in terms of what you?
This is
It's a big variable.
Yeah.
it can be a big variable, but I would
And
say,
guys, when I say copyright, I'm talking about the heading. What's your videos about? What's that tagline?
The way it's written.
Yeah,
and,
right. Yeah.
my 2 cents on this is
Because again, you're trying to capture attention.
you're trying to capture attention.
Gary Vee does a fantastic job of that.
I would say not to lose focus on the visual components of your ad, because both Facebook and Instagram, they're highly visual platforms. So I would focus on, if I was just looking at that photo or that video and didn't have the text around, would it still stand on its own?
Right.
And then the text can be complementary to that. It
Exactly.
can add more context.
The video itself, the content itself is your steak,
Right.
and the text and the headline is kind of the parsley, the trimmings that make it look that much better.
So-
It's because the thing is the best copywriting in the world. It's going to elevate the worst content a little bit, but it's not going to make up for it. The best content in the world, it doesn't really matter what you put on the headline. It's more than likely going to work,
Including eating stinky fish.
including eating stinky fish. Yeah.
So I've got a question for both you and Bradley. Bradley, you need to jump in on this, because I think you're the guy for this. We're going to talk a little bit now, guys, about retention strategies for insurance agents on Facebook. I have some ideas about how to utilize Facebook for retention strategies of existing customers, clients. Tell me your thoughts on it, Bradley. How can you use Facebook to help with your retention in your agency?
I mean, I think from just a pure branding standpoint, I mean, I want my current clients to see my videos as much as I want people who are about to buy from me.
Right.
I think people constantly having that reminder of, hey, that's my insurance agent. Yeah, he's the one that puts out all that content. And, having, I love, having this small little audience of 30 to 40 people that engage with every post that I do, and having a large percentage of them be current clients.
Right.
Because they're like, well, I mean, that's one reason why I'm not scared to put out content on Facebook. People ask me all the time, like, you're putting out content about strategies to help other insurance agents, but yet you've got people who might want to buy insurance. Why aren't you marketing to just them? Well, I'm not scared for my potential prospects or my clients to know that I'm helping other insurance agents with marketing,
Right.
because in my mind, and I could be completely wrong, but in my mind, that's going to make them want to do business with me.
Right. Because you position yourself, again, step number 2 of that straight line system, you as the agent, you start getting closer to that number 10, because you're viewed by your current customers as an expert in the industry. And I've actually seen a little bit of bump in business from my agency, because I think some of my agents, I know one of my commercial agents actually uses this podcast that, hey, we'll go up against anybody. My guy's got a nationally recognized podcast. What you got? That kind of thing. So I see that.
And I think, there's ways to do it. We can target some folks and things
Right.
like that. And, I've got a strategy in my head about targeting people at renewal. I think that would be kind of cool,
Right.
or say, people that don't have auto and you target them for home, or vice versa. Obviously for an audience like that, you have to have a lot of data in order to be able to target them effectively. I can't just take 3 people with their emails and do a custom audience and target them. Yeah, I have to ask. You can, but it doesn't
Right.
work as effectively.
Well-
What do you think about that or what do you think from a customer retention standpoint?
Yeah, I know you guys have talked about custom audiences quite a bit on this podcast, and I think that's a great starting point, at least if you're thinking about using Facebook and Instagram as additional channel, and Messenger for that matter, as a way to kind of enhance what you're already doing, whether that's, phone calls, text, email. But I think people want to hear from their agents. They want to be hearing from, even carriers, right?
Right.
After they purchased insurance, and they want product recommendations. They want to get updates on value-added services, even just periodic check-ins is something that they're looking for. And so I think, there's the benefit that you have of uploading a custom audience as a way to reach this very specific narrow audience of your customers on platforms that they're also likely spending time on to, again, complement things like mailers and email. But I think there's also ways that you could get creative or interesting with your strategies, right? So it's, one thing to upload a list of everybody and then you're treating every customer the same way. You could get creative thinking about what are ways to segment those customers and to give yourself the ability to demonstrate you really understand their needs based on, what your relationship is with them in the business and make sure they're hearing from you.
Can I go back to something you just said that
Sure.
really kind of struck a chord with me? So is it possible, and I'm asking on behalf of 250,000 insurance agents, one of my goals this year is to, at renewal of every policy we have one of my CSRs in my agency assigned to go out and take my username and password on Facebook and get into the Facebook program when she gets in the office in the morning and go out and find that person, because everybody's on Facebook. I mean, the number of people that aren't on Facebook is very small, right? Even like older people, like 70-year-olds are on Facebook, especially those people. So what I want to do is get them to go out and each day, let's say we have 10, 15, 20 renewals that day, go find those people on Facebook and ask them to like our business page and then start posting content towards prospects, but also for our existing customers. It could be things like Alabama-Auburn football tickets or, it could be anything. Is there a way for me to just upload my entire client database on the Facebook and then ask through that database to go like our Facebook page without going through that trouble? Is that possible? I'm just asking. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think on the surface,
Bradley, you may know the answer to that too. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, uploading your customer base through a custom audiences is certainly doable. The way that that product specifically works is it sort of, it takes your list, it matches who we can also match on the Facebook side, it ignores everyone we can't, and it creates this sort of shell audience for you that's comprised of just those people.
Wow.
But for privacy reasons, we don't necessarily tell you who exactly is on that list if you want to market specifically to them.
Right.
So you could upload a list, tell people to like your page, tell people that you have, football tickets and whatnot. I think
or whatever.
it could be anything
or whatever. I think the example of being able to identify the 20 or 10 people that have renewals that day, that might be a little bit trickier. And my advice would be, maybe taking a step back and saying maybe it's not the 10 or 20 people that have a renewal that day, but maybe there's value in reaching them, in the weeks leading up to their renewal.
Right.
So it's, top of mind for them. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Staying in front of them. And that's really what I meant from a branding standpoint, is staying in front of them. That way that, they feel confident that they have their insurance with Scott.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to do that. Again, why can't both be true? I think for myself, as I'm going independent here in the next year, I want to keep that nationwide brand because it's such a strong national brand. So is State Farm, so is Allstate, so is Farmers. These are brands people know. But conjointly to that, I think it's probably as important, if not more important, to also brand myself with personal branding. And Bradley and I could sit here and have a 50-minute conversation on that.
And everyone doesn't have the wherewithal or the want to do that. And if you want to default back to that, not saying you do, I'm just saying, John Doe, whatever, XYZ insurance, farm, mutual agent out there, they might be comfortable just defaulting to the carrier brand. And are you going to lose some clients to the fact that people don't know that you're different from the other guy down the street who represents the same company? Absolutely.
Right.
But are you going to pick up some clients because of that name recognition? Absolutely. So, I mean, I think why can't both be true is absolutely important.
Absolutely. So last topic before
and on the custom audiences, we're going to deep dive into that
absolutely
in the next segment. So
last topic of the day before, and guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this podcast today with a little bit of a teaser for you guys, because in the next podcast, Scott is going to change the United States economy. He is going to change Facebook and the insurance industry forever. and I want to leave you guys. So there was a topic on here that I actually skipped over: customer acquisition. Now, Bradley, if you want to put me on Facebook Live right now to say this, you feel free to. So I have left off one of our topics in our first segment here, customer acquisitions. The reason I've done that, guys, is I'm going to tease you for just a second. In segment 2 of this podcast, Scott Howell is going to change the United States economy. He is going to change Facebook forever, and he is going to change the insurance industry forever. And I look forward to that. I look forward to the revenue from that and how much money that my family and I are going to make, because we're going to make more money. Bradley and I and some other people that are going to be involved in this are going to make Oprah Winfrey money. And I will probably have my own helicopter and be flying around the Bahamas after that. But we're going to talk about that in the beginning of segment number 2. So I hope you'll go to that episode and listen to it. But the last thing we're going to talk about today, measuring impact with the Facebook pixel. I don't even know what that means. Like, whatever that is, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a Facebook pixel is. I do know that is a part of some of the courses that I have heard about, just the very brief knowledge I have of some of the courses that you can buy, and I hope it's one of your videos that you do down there that you go through. But go ahead and talk a little bit about Facebook Pixel.
Yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap of videos because it's an important topic.
Yeah.
And I think just from a very high level, for businesses of all sizes, Facebook is committed to making sure that any dollar that you invest with Facebook, that you're maximizing your returns off of.
Right.
And one of the most important tools to be able to do that is the Facebook Pixel, which
it links to your website, does it not?
It does. So the Facebook Pixel is a snippet of code.
Guys, you need to be writing this shit down. Write this shit down.
It's a snippet of code that you put on your website, same type of code that you would use with Google or other types of similar services. But what that effectively does is allow you to understand what is happening after somebody is seeing your ads on Facebook or Instagram and help you quantify the impact of your advertising efforts. So, for example, that pixel can live on your homepage,
right?
And you can understand how much traffic you're driving to your website. You could also have the pixel differentiate how many people are starting a quote with you. If you have an online quoting service or quoting application, it can help you understand how far into the quoting application somebody is making it, and potentially help you identify where are people dropping off, where are their points of friction, to help you make smarter decisions about your website or different tactics. So what that's also doing beyond just measuring, how many people are taking actions on your website as a result of seeing ads, it's also enabling a couple of other important tactics. So one of which being able to retarget people who have visited your website. So not only are you capturing the amount of people, but you're able to create custom audiences based on the pixel so that you could remarket to someone and understand, hey, they're likely in the market. Maybe it is the right time to get the right message in front of this audience. So that's an important strategy. And then I think the other one that I would touch on is, and going back to kind of using data to help figure out who is that right customer at the right time. There's another tactic that's linked to the pixel called lookalike audiences. So
I've heard Bradley talk about lookalikes.
They're highly effective, and one way that you can build a lookalike audience is modeling or creating that audience based off of who's visited your website. So it's a product that we have where we effectively are looking at any type of what we call a seed audience. That seed audience can be people who have visited your website. It could be a customer list that you uploaded.
That's coming from
a pillar.
That's coming from the pixel too, right? Is that pixel taking that data? Is that because the pixel that the code that's on your website is allowing Facebook to see who's visiting that site? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So the pixel is enabling us to see who's taking actions on your website and allowing us to match and say, are those people on Facebook and were they exposed to ads from this business, so that you can have a clearer understanding of what is the impact of your advertising efforts.
So I've got one right now. I did an announcement video, the new agency, and this just came up in the last few days, which is why I'm bringing it up. And we got probably 10 to 15,000 views on the announcement video.
Awesome.
So I'm like, hey, here's my big piece of pillar content that I can take this audience and then retarget them through a specific ask. So off of that, I did another video targeting people who watched more than a certain percentage of that video, which is essentially done through the Pixel. And it's basically me saying, hey, you watch this video, want to see what we're all about, click below.
Sure.
And then from there, I did another video that's like, hey, are you tired of this, and talking about pain points.
Are you tired of your agent only representing one company?
That's actually exactly what
Call
it says.
Portal Insurance today. We've got choices for you.
So anyway,
and then to every captive agent in America, that's like nails on a chalkboard hearing that.
I had one attack me on there, but it's okay. A buddy of mine, and I have a workout group I work out with, Fitness Friends, shout out Fitness Friends, on Sunday mornings. And a buddy of mine he was like, he holds the phone up. He's like, this damn video shows up on my timeline every single time I click the Facebook app. And I'm like, you're in that funnel, dude.
That's
I was like, I got you for 180 days.
That's it, man.
It's like it's gonna keep.
It's gonna be like the Arizona heat, baby. It's never gonna stop until you buy insurance from them.
And I had another guy comment throwing some hate my way on one of those videos, and I'm like, that is like the worst thing you could have done, because now you've engaged with it, and now you're going to see you just started the clock over again. So
peanut butter and jealous.
Right.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen, I'm going to close this thing out. I hope that everybody listening to this will stay tuned as Scott Howell changes the entire United States economy and the insurance industry as we know it as of today. We're about to get into session number 2 of this podcast. And as I always say, get your ass out from behind that desk and go out into the big bad world and sell insurance today. Guys, listen to me. You need to understand Facebook. It's where people are. Am I saying it's where 100% of the marketplace is? No, but it's where a bunch of them are, and it's where a bunch of people that would buy insurance from you are. And I think the more that you understand about Facebook advertising and lookalike audiences and pixels and all these other things, the more likely you are to run some really creative ads that actually work and bring people to you to buy insurance. And that's the name of the game. Guys, listen, I've told you this before. The Yellow Pages is now in the Smithsonian Institute. I showed my son, a 12-year-old son, the Yellow Pages the other day. I said, what's this? He said, I have no idea what that is. 10, 15 years ago, we were all but trying to buy full-page ads on Yellow Pages. Those days are over, folks. Facebook is where your clients are at, and you better get on the train and learn how to do it. But we're about to go into session number 2 where Scott changes the insurance world and the U.S. economy. As I always say, get your ass out there and go sell some insurance today. Make money for your family, for your wife, your husband, your kids. Write good business for the agencies that you represent. Write good business for the companies that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Patrick.
Patrick,
absolutely.
I love you too. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a long journey, but it was worth it.
Definitely.
Guys, have a great day. We'll see you back here real soon on the next episode of the Insurance Guys podcast. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. If you need to know more about me or you need to get in touch with Scott, you can always reach me at theinsuranceguyonline.com or email me at iprotectins@gmail.com. And if you need to get in touch with Mr. Bradley Flowers, go to bradleyflowersinsurance.com or email him at bradley@saralandinsurance.com. Guys, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to being with you again real soon on the next episode of the Insurance Guys. Take care.